Hey everyone. Lawsuits are a very common occurrence in everyday life, to the point that most of them go unnoticed, simply because they don't stand out that much. And their demands are so simple, bare bones, you really don't care what the outcome of the lawsuit is. Like, oh, was it this party or the other party that won? I couldn't care less because it's not big of a difference to me. However, this lawsuit here that was filed back in the beginning of June is massive enough that a lot of people are really interested in the direction it's going in. Which just simply boils down that Steam might be gouged like a fish for a massive price. Like, it's almost unbelievable. For context, it was filed by a lady called Vicky Scholpold, which is a pretty badass name to be fair. And from what I know of her, she mainly works for like children's digital rights. So in case like someone gets screwed over, she defends for them like in a lawsuit. So she really has a background in that kind of stuff that makes this lawsuit have a bit more legitimacy than most other dumb stories. But she filed it because she believes that customers in the UK are getting ripped off by Steam for very high prices, and that Steam themselves is using monopolistic tactics to make more money. And I guess you could get behind that because apart from the joke, what other game stores do you use online to actually get the games you want? But the part that baffles me, and that really compelled me to make this video, is the demand they're asking for. We're asking Steam to refund customers up to a total of £650 million, or in US dollars, 800 million, around that ball game. That's insane to me. It took me a while to process it when I first read it on the headline, but the basic math behind it is that it says to me that 14 million customers were ripped off by them, and each one is owed like around 20 to 40 pounds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but of course, times up by 14 million, and that's where you get that huge demand. But I really feel like I couldn't make a video about this without expressing my doubts. That makes me feel like this lawsuit, it doesn't have the best defense. For one, you have a group of people whose opinions matter a lot coming out to talk about this, that being developers. That have said, despite the flaws of Steam, they would much rather sell on that platform compared to like the other competition out there. And I know this sounds very generic, but of course, if you're looking to like sell a product, the best place to go to is the one that people know the most and has been around for the longest. You could say Steam has a monopoly over this market for their own tactics, but again, if you really look at it, people still go to them because they're still the most convenient to go to. I feel like an actual monopoly would over every customer at every single point for the pure reason to make more money, and because they know that customers don't have any other alternatives, which they still do with stuff like the Epic Game Store. And that was another point they made, that the commission that Steam is asking for, 40%, is way higher than the percentage that other storefronts are asking for, with Epic Game Store being 12%. And if you're a developer, that does sound like a massive loss, having to fork over 20% of revenue for every single game you sold. But again, like I said before, people have come out to say that there's so many benefits from selling on Steam compared to like anywhere else. The small amount of revenue you lost from that 40% commission is definitely outweighed by all the other perks you get from selling on Steam. Plus, now let's be serious, let's debate if the lawsuit is really gonna stick to the promise and give a refund to all the customers that were ripped off, as they say. Because when they're asking for that much, they're better half of $1 billion, and I see what people would say that they have ulterior motives behind it driving the lawsuit. Not to mention that it's very rare stuff like this actually wins, not because of the lack of evidence, but most like how the demand is so absurdly high, it's very hard to get behind it and support it. Also, I have to say now, one tiny little funny part I found out while like looking up the story is that the phone solicitors had to go against Steam is the same one that made the £5 billion claim against Sony to refund their customers for the exact same reason that fans, they were getting ripped off. Not only is that funny, but makes this current lawsuit much more shaky when I haven't heard that much from the other one, either because Sony won for good reasons or because their huge warmongering claim couldn't be met. That's a completely different story on its own timeline. But again, this lawsuit, the Steam one, it's a very young one, like a young summer child. There's so many steps in the legal process that this one could just be halted halfway through and never get to the end. But me personally, I really could not care less if I got back 20 or 40 pounds. It's not a huge deal. It just goes back to that 650 million pounds. It sounds massive, but when you really cut it down, you're the customer that has to be divided between 14 million people. Once you yourself get the share you were promised from and was wrongfully stolen from you, it's really not that much. Like, yeah, sure, it'd be nice, but am I really gonna storm the Steam headquarters like an embassy for that money back? And on the topic of Steam's offense against the lawsuit, one reason I could see them bring up on the actual trial is that simply customers go to them because they're more convenient, and not that they're crushing competition so they're the only option. Compared to the other example, the Epic Game Store, they don't really strangle exclusive games to stay on the store. They don't care that much, they just let it be sold anywhere. And plus, come on, how can you argue that they haven't been up for a long time and they just naturally have people's trust? Like, that's a very normal byproduct for like having stayed up for so many years and having people come back to you. But yeah, overall, I'm not keeping my hopes high to get back £20 from a game I bought when I was like 6 years old. I don't know, so to say.